Hey everyone, Aisha here. So today I wanted to talk about the topic knowing your triggers, right? And knowing your triggers within the context of building a support system. Because one of the biggest challenges for single moms, especially new single moms, and one of the barriers that I hear over and over and over again from pregnant single moms to seasoned single moms to everything in between, right? Is building a support system. And so within my book, Navigating the Impossible, a survival guide for single moms from pregnancy through the first year of motherhood, I give some really practical tools and tips in terms of, and strategies in terms of how to build a support system. But recently I was thinking about, what comes before that? Because just in life and in single motherhood in general, it can come with a lot of baggage because it can come with a lot of hurt and pain. And I just started to think because just recently in therapy, one of the things that I discovered about myself is one of my triggers, like a trigger I had no idea existed. And it was the trigger of being able to receive help. And so if someone offers to help, for some reason, it triggers me. It triggers feelings of betrayal. It triggers feelings of questioning safety, right? And I realized, like, why is this? Like, why is someone offering to help? Why is it so triggering to me? It's so triggering to the point where I might cut someone off for asking to help. Like, outside of like the people who are in my support system now, it is very difficult for me to accept new help. Like, this overwhelming feeling of fear comes in. I start questioning, like, am I safe? Are my kids safe? Is everything okay? And I start to feel like I am spiraling emotionally out of control, all because someone offered to help. And I started to ask myself, like, why is this? I had no idea it existed. And I remember a friend of mine who has done so many amazing things for me, just even in terms of helping me in business. I remember she was pleading with me, like, let me help you. Because the more she wanted to help, the more I would kind of buck against and try and push her away and want to do things myself. And she was like, let me help you. And it was very difficult for me to be able to say yes. And I finally realized it in therapy. And so this is why I'm saying, like, you have to be able to understand your triggers, especially when it comes to building a support system. You need to know it in life, right? But when you're looking at building a support system as a single mom, you have to understand the things that you need, the things that trigger you, and the things that you need to have in place to be able to help you to build trust with the people that God is sending to help you. Otherwise, you will remain isolated, stressed out, stressed thin, and alone, right? And it's very difficult to move forward in motherhood and in life, walking in purpose and raising your child up or your children up in a way that is good and pleasing to the Lord if you are doing it all alone. And for me, it caused me in certain situations to reject the help that God sent or drive them so crazy they don't want to help me anymore, right? And I don't want that to happen to you. But the reason why it's so important for you to know what your triggers are is because you can't surrender what you don't know exists. If you don't know a trigger is allowing people to help, if you don't know that when someone offers to help, it reminds you of betrayal. It might remind you of the person who left. It might remind you of friends that said that they were going to be there or not there. It might remind you of the times where someone volunteered to help you, and then when you came to them for help, because it's hard to ask for help, but when you finally get up the nerve, right, or the courage to ask somebody to help and they don't pick up the phone or they're not there, it can be very hard to want to go through that process again, and it's very real, right? Which is why I'm a big advocate for therapy, which is why I'm a big advocate for healing. Because when I think about what I teach you in this book, and I'm pointing at the book, but you can't see it. What I teach you in this book is so important. But I need you to be able to heal enough to get to the point where you allow people to help you. And that is one thing that I realized 7 years into this journey, right? That was something that I still struggle with, because when somebody asked me to help, I was reminded of, the twins, father walking out. I was reminded of friends who were supposed to be there but ended up gossiping behind my back. I was reminded of people who I thought wanted to help, but then they were involved in witchcraft and were trying to place curses on us and all of this crazy stuff, right? And so when genuine people came, I was afraid, and it triggered such fear that I was unable to allow them to enter in to be able to help. And one of the things that I think I said in a book, but I know I've said in other trainings that I've done over the years, is God gives us gives us all gifts, right? And so some of the one spiritual gift so he might have given somebody, and this is a spiritual gift, is hospitality, helping people, people who are called to the sick and shut in, the people who are called to the widows and orphans, right? But when we reject somebody that God is sending, we're hampering God's ability to work through them, and we're hampering their ability to show and walk in the gifts that God has called them to do. And so one of the things that I was reminded of when I was just reflecting on this the other day, when I was discussing this in therapy, because I had this revelation in therapy, which is why I'm a big believer in therapy. And I said this: we can't surrender what we don't know exists. And so this is a stretching moment for me, a test. Do I trust God with my pain to heal it, or to hold on to it and to reject the gifts and the growth and deliverance that God is bringing into my life? And so I have to make a choice, and I'm encouraging you to make a choice. Is your pain so comfortable, right, that you would rather hold on to the pain than healing? Is it so comfortable to walk in control and isolation than it is to walk in freedom, not having to do everything alone and allowing the people that God has placed in your life to help? And so for me, as I continued on with this reflection the other day, I said, I realized that I don't want to give up control because control is comfortable. And so for me, rejecting help, being isolated, and pushing away potential people who would be a part of my journey and support system, it allowed me to hold on to control. Because even if the control and the outcome of the control is not ideal, it can be comforting, right? It can be a comfort blanket. And so I think about this in the context of injuring my arm a few months ago. It was easier for me to not move my arm and to not do physical therapy because I knew, like, it was comfortable. I got to a point where I could move it enough, and that became comfortable. And I thought about the inconvenience, right, of going to physical therapy. And I'm like, you know what? I'd rather, like, I didn't consciously choose that. I said, oh, partial mobility is better than full healing. But that was a decision subconsciously that I made because I didn't want to go through the process, because the process seemed inconvenient. And so this is why we have to begin to understand our triggers, understand what's driving it, understand the underlying assumptions, and understand that this is the thing that we need to take to God. And one of the things I said in my reflection is that I have to decide if I trust God more than myself, trust God's way more than my way. Do I want freedom more than I want captivity and bondage? And am I willing to believe who God said who he is, and that his ways are better than my ways? But there is a difference between head knowledge and heart knowledge, because so many of us know that God is good, right? So many of us know that God answers our prayers. And we know that we need to build a support system as a single mom. And we know that one of the biggest barriers to building a support system is people, right? We say we might not have the right people in our network. We might not have family in the area. We might not have friends in the area. Whatever it is. And so we think about sometimes the tangible barriers of building a support system, but there are also emotional barriers. And so if we don't address those lack of emotion, if we don't address those emotional barriers, then it can cause us to push away the very people that God has sent to our lives to bless us. And so what if you're like me, right? Who will cut off, run from, find fault with, or reject the people that God has called you to help, has called to help you. And so my prayer to you, my earnest prayer to you, as it is for myself, is not only, Lord, please send me a support system, right? Please send the people who are supposed to do life, this thing called life with me, right? I've begun to add to it is please allow me to have the discernment to know who is sent from you to be a part of my support system, and help me to be able to recognize that they are from you, God. And please let me trust you enough, oh God, to allow them to help me. Because without that last part, we may reject those who God has sent to help. And we may reject those who God is sending to us to further show his love for us. When I remember back when I was when I was pregnant with my twins, and I've been very transparent, I experienced an unplanned pregnancy and became a single mom when I was 4 months pregnant. And so when I made the decision to continue on with my pregnancy and not terminate it, I had no idea what was in store for me. I had no idea I was going to have a support system. But I remember one thing that was very important to me, and I just remember it just like it was yesterday. A friend of mine asked me for my address, and I sent it to her, and I thought it was really strange because I'm like, if you're going to come over, you've been to my house like so many times, you know where I live. So why are you asking me for my address? And so not that long later, there were 2 giant boxes of clothes that appeared on my doorstep from someone I've never met, never talked to in my entire life. And at that moment, I knew that we were going to be okay. It was the act of allowing someone to help was the thing that changed my whole perspective on my pregnancy. And I didn't even realize it at the time until I'm saying it just now. It was someone helping me, someone that God sent to do this kind thing to me, for me, that placed my trust in him, to let me know that he will never leave me nor forsake me in this pregnancy. Even though I had been abandoned by my twins' dad, even though later on I would experience abandonment from friends, I was not abandoned by God. And it was that act of help, that act of service that gave me the confidence to know that everything was going to be okay. So in this book, right, Navigating the Impossible, or Survival Guide for Single Moms from Pregnancy Through the First Year of Motherhood, you know, I have a whole section. I was going to read parts of it today, but I'm actually not to. I'm not going to, because I think that what I shared right now is sufficient. But I want you to understand, this is going to teach you how to build a support system as a single mom. But what I want you to understand in this video is that you need to get to the emotional place where you allow the people that God will send you for your support system to help. Because if you don't, you'll end up in the very same place as if you never had one to begin with. And so it's super important to know your triggers. It's super important to know your triggers with people. It's super important to allow God to take that pain and turn it into healing and purpose and restoration. Because we know when we look at the work Christ did on the cross, it was a restorative work. It was a redeeming work. And sometimes when we're experiencing unplanned pregnancy, or we are single moms and it just wasn't planned for us to be single moms that way, sometimes we can be stuck in the pain. Sometimes we can be stuck in the shame. Sometimes we can get stuck in the confusion. But we have to remember that Christ's death on the cross took all of that. And he's calling us to a place of healing, to wholeness, to restoration, and redemption. So allow him to do that redeeming work in you. It's not fair to look at everybody through the lens of the people who betrayed you and who left. Allow the Lord to give you new eyes, new sight, new discernment, new joy, new trust, new faith, so that you can move forward in your journey with faith and victory. And there's one thing that I want to read from this, as I want you to understand why this is so important. And this is in the book on page 123. I heard a story about a single mom whose long-term boyfriend broke up with her when he found out she was pregnant. He didn't want the baby, but she did, so he left. The mom was devastated, and the experience caused her to stop trusting people. She tried to be strong and handle everything alone, even though family members asked her how they can help her. She prepared for the baby's arrival by herself. She was stressed, sad, and lonely. And what's worse is that she developed postpartum depression and other health issues, and she had to be hospitalized. I don't want this to happen to you. I don't want you to go through what I did, where I experienced multiple years of depression. I don't want you to experience what I did. This story, that actually was not me. That was somebody, a story whose mom actually told that to me about her child. But I don't want the feelings of isolation and overwhelming shame that I felt to be your story. So allow God to heal you. Allow God to renew your trust. Allow God to renew your faith. And allow God to send the people that He has for you to be a part of your support system, and trust Him enough to allow them to help you. So I just want to say thank you so much for watching. Please like this video, share it, subscribe, leave a comment. Let me know how this helps you and how this is going to help you to rethink building a support system in your single motherhood journey. And I definitely want to encourage you to head over to Amazon to pick up a copy of this book, Navigating the Impossible, a survival guide for single moms from pregnancy through the first year of motherhood. Or you can go to navigatingtheimpossiblebook.com. Alrighty. Hope this has helped you. Have a good one. Bye.